Sorry, the title is, as you can see, the classicist look at the Latin manuscript of Gomez de Sufera. Please.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes, and I thank everyone for being here, and especially Professor Ryuji Hiraoka and Hiro Hirai and Ken Nejime for allowing me to do this presentation. This presentation is really a report on our work in progress. So I'm really here to, well, hopefully get some ideas about things I really don't know. Since, well, I know, as a classicist, I know some Latin, but you know, very little of anything else. So, yes, but well, about the Gomez manuscript, well, the Gomez manuscript is actually something, well, one could say that it's right here, even though this is a reproduction, obviously, and yeah, kindly we could get a copy from the university library here, a copy of the reproduction, which, well, you could maybe leaf through later when there is time. Now, to sum up this text or give everyone a summary summary information, one could perhaps say as follows. The Gomez text, the only surviving manuscript copy of the original Latin text used in the Japanese Jesuit college. What is this? Well, this manuscript is the the Reg Lat 426 manuscript in the Vatican Library, and it came to the Vatican through Queen Christina of Sweden, who converted to Catholicism in the 17th century. We know, that much. However, we don't know where it came from before that. This manuscript was identified by Shute in 1939 as the Japanese Jesuit College textbook, and I have the article that contains that report under the references of Roman numeral 7 in the handout. This manuscript is quite long, about 900 pages of closely written text. This text, as Ryuji Hiraoka and others have pointed out, partially relates to and overlaps with pre-existing European educational texts, Aristotelian or otherwise. And of course, this Gomez manuscript has several different parts, so different parts relate to different genres of texts. This text apparently was translated into Japanese already in the Kiristan period, presumably because some Japanese students in the Jesuit college were not proficient enough in Latin. We don't know the exact reasons, but that is the presumed reason. And the Japanese translations also partially, at least, they survive. There's a Magdalen College manuscript 228, which is not a translation of the entire manuscript, but again, a part of it. This is in Japanese with some Latin notes interspersed within the text and in the margin. Then there's a group of texts of which Professor Hiraoka, of course, knows much. There are a number of Japanese astronomical texts of the Edo period that are translations, paraphrases, adaptations of a certain part of this Gomez text. And I came to work on this text after I was invited kindly by Professor Ryuji Hiraoka, and together we are translating just a very small, editing and translating just a very small part of it, folios 20 to 38. And in the beginning, let me say a little about some of the very basic things I am doing as a textual editor. After I began to look at this text, or well, since I haven't been to the Vatican, after looking at the reproduction of this text, I came to realize that the surviving manuscript is definitely corrupt in certain places. For example, please look at Roman numeral 1A in the handout. This is folio 12, recto of the manuscript, right near the beginning. The manuscript text says, sunt autem elementos. Oh yes, please. What I cite in the handout starts here. Sunt autem elementa corpora quaedam simplicia homogenea exporum commixtione diversae generatorum superstes fiunt. This is the manuscript. And the transcribed edition, or the published transcription of this portion, which I indicate as obara in the handout. This is also in at the end of the handout under references. Well, obara also follows the manuscript in having superstes. However, this really does not make sense, since superstes, well, it's an adjective and it's in the singular form, whereas the context suggests that this must agree with diversae, and also the verb is fiunt, plural. Besides, one really wants to see a noun here. There's diversae here, but there's no really noun that should agree with that. So, now I was puzzling over this for a little while and thought that this sounds like a set expression. So I went to the internet and did searches for diversae generatorum, or such phrases, and saw that that this indeed is a kind of set phrase. In Sacrobosco, for example, as you see in the handout, there is a phrase that goes like exporum commixtione diversae generatorum species fiunt, and that makes very good sense. The translation, as I have on the handout, should be like out of whose commixture diverse species or diverse kinds of generated things arise. So it looks to me very, very much like a mistake by a scribe here. Originally, this was species or species, but now it's superstes. Now, what does this mean? Perhaps is this an oral, mistake? The scribe was hearing this by the ear and transcribed it incorrectly, perhaps. But in this case, I think it's pretty clear that really our critical edition should have species and then have a note at the bottom, and that's the way we are going to do this. Another example of a very possible corruption. This is handout Roman numeral 1B, folio 21. Let's see. So the part we should be looking at starts like argumentum hoc assigno optimum est. I should have looked at this. Okay, it's on here. Argumentum hoc assigno optimum est. Again, Obara, the transcription that is published already, just follows the manuscript. It has the verb form asigno here. And Mr. Obara, in his Japanese translation, says something like, this argument, I think, is the best. As far as I know, however, asigno is not used parenthetically like this in Latin. So I thought this sounds very strange. I again did some thinking and thought, is it possible that this is a signal, actually, preposition and signal, the noun? If it is a signal, then the translation would be something like, this argument from sign is the best. Now, being not, now having not much knowledge in philosophy, I do not really have a good sense of how common this phrase is, argumentum a signo. But I did some searches on the internet, and the other day I saw that Francisco Toletus uses this expression several times. And we also have good indication that Toletus was brought into Japan. And is this something that comes in from Toletus? I don't know, we should really, well, I would love to find out. Now, this example is from, well, toward the end of what I and Professor Hiraoka is, we are looking at. Roman numeral 1, C. The Latin text is talking about kinds of earthquakes. I'll just read out the English translation. But if an upward elevation of a hill takes place, a colis takes place, this is called pulsio. By this kind of earthquake, entire cities can be crushed, just as it happened to Arequipa, maybe, or let's see, the manuscript has, here, yes. Just as it happened, Aliquipe, Vitati Peranae Annis Millesimo Quinquagesimo Septuagesimo Nono, so 1579. Now, Obara has Aliquipe here, and he interprets this as some. Now, I can see where he got that sense, although this exact form actually does not exist in Latin. I mean, there are words like aliquispiam, but it needs to be the dative, whereas this Q is not. I mean, it should be C. So there's something strange going on here. And also, the A is capitalized. I believe someone first wrote a small a here, and then realized that they should be capitalized. So put a large a afterwards. But even though to make sure, one really needs to look at the original manuscript in the Vatican. What is happening here? Well, yeah, I hesitate to say this a bit, but I turned to the internet again, and I actually looked into the Latin Wikipedia, and I looked at the list of place names in Peru, and saw that there is a city called Arequipa, or a city that is called in Latin Arequipa. And, well, at least according to the Wikipedia and several other places on the internet, this Arequipa was in existence already in 1579. Now, I do not know if there was an earthquake there in 1579. I guess one has to ask Peruvian history specialists and do some research, which we haven't done yet, I have to say. But yeah, but I think it is. Well, it seems likely to me, at least, that this is a place name And well, what happened here is a confusion between L and R. And then, of course, AE is just pronounced E. It's the same pronunciation. So, yeah, another case of well, textual corruption that needs to be fixed or amended. Now, interchanges of L's and R's are rather frequent in our text. This is in your handout, Roman numeral 1D. I just listed these examples that I found, like pluna, written for pruna, resultat, written for resultat, and many others. Sometimes we can see the scribe catching himself making a mistake, like here. The word should be rapidissimo, and the scribe wrote L and then immediately scratched that out. So, well, this, to me, it looks like the scribe was transcribing this by ear and made a mistake, realized that immediately, corrected it. Now, so there are these textual corruptions or mistakes by scribes. But even accounting for that, the Gomez manuscript, as far as I have seen, now it's a huge work, and we have seen only a very little part of it. But as far as I can see, this is not in very good humanistic Latin. I noted my summary observation in your handout, Roman numeral 2, C. There are numerous examples of non-classical usage and vocabulary, syntax, especially modes and tenses. The subjunctive tenses are really all over the place. The word order is very fixed and monotonous. This is not very good humanistic Latin. One would say that parallels do exist in medieval and scholastic Latin, to be sure. For example, there are some examples of pleonastic or redundant comparatives in Roman numeral 2A, magis orientalior, really. This is like saying more further to the east. Or B, proximior, it's like saying more closest. But, I mean, this is not, let us say, completely unheard of. We see things like this going on in medieval Latin and in scholastic Latin. However, as far as I know, Titelmans and Toledo also, I believe, would not go down to that level. They have a veneer of humanism. Whereas this, the Gomez textbook is more unvarnished, let us say. This is like a college lecture in the medieval tradition. Not much polishing of style. Now, humanistic Latin, to be sure, was taught in the seminary, in the Japanese seminary. We have good evidence for this, and well, if you are curious to find out something more about this, you can see, for example, Harada's book published in 1998. This is under references in your handout. I also summed up some of my own additions and observations under Watanabe. This is under Watanabe 2014. Now, in the interest of time, I think I want to pass over very quickly number 3, even though this is perhaps something that might interest some of the participants. I personally am very interested in the reception of classical humanism in the Kirishitan period in Japan. So I'm always curious to know how the Japanese at that time, or their European instructors for that matter, viewed the pagan classical tradition. In the Gomez text that I and Professor Hiraoka are looking at closely, there is a portion where the Aristotelian tradition and the Judeo-Christian tradition are put right side by side in a rather interesting way to my mind, and even a humorous way, I think. This is under Roman numeral 3, and well, we don't really need to go through all of it, but toward the end of the section that I cited, let me read the English translation. Gomez, or whoever composed this text, is citing the Old Testament and saying things like, it is also asserted in the same place in the creation story concerning birds and fishes that they were produced from water, nor is some mention made that God, taking up particles of elements and mixing them together, produced some mixed thing. Oh, and by the way, I caught myself making a mistranslation here, so please excuse me, but this, in your handout, there's a mistranslation. I think a better version would have been like, mixing them together produced some mixed thing, to follow the Latin text, to render the Latin text more accurately. Yeah, so, I wondered about something like this. Is Gomez intentionally juxtaposing the Judeo-Christian tradition, versus the Aristotelian tradition? Like, isn't it a little funny to imagine the Old Testament talking about the elements, God tinkering with the elements in an Aristotelian way? So, well, I don't really know though. Let me go to the next thing, yes, which tells us perhaps something about the way this manuscript was actually put to use in the original context. When I got this photographic reproduction and was looking at the at all the pages closely, I noticed that there is this marginal note, and it is actually in Japanese. Please look at Roman numeral 4, and under Roman numeral 4, you see a transcription of this one right here. It says, Sekai no grad, something, grados maybe, 360, のりは6300里、これよりチェントロまでは1000里、ディアメトロは2004里. Okay. This is talking about the measurements and dimensions of the globe. What I find interesting and puzzling is that this little bit of information here doesn't actually summarize what is being talked about on the same page around here. It is connected with the text on the back, actually. And I cite this, I have this portion here. Now, it so turns out that in your handout also, the corresponding portion is on the back. But if you turn one page, this is the corresponding part that begins with tertio patet quaesit magnitudo terrae et aquae, and so forth. And the Japanese marginal note here, well, it seems to be compressing what is on the back and just giving the essential information, most importantly the numbers. So why is this here? Is it something that the student thought might come up in an exam, like an oral exam, and the text is on the back, but he thought he would just write it here? Well, I don't know. It's interesting to imagine, but one really needs to have a good idea of the educational the actual educational context of the Jesuit collegio and the Japanese Jesuit collegio in the particular. So, yeah, so here we need to really, do more investigations or, hear informed opinions. A little while ago, I was talking about humanistic Latin education in the seminario, which of course comes before the collegio in the Jesuit curriculum. As I said, we have some good solid indication that the Jesuits tried to teach humanistic Latin, including real, well, what one would call real classical Latin, in the Japanese Jesuit seminary. Well, I put a transcription of the first poetry fragment in the handout, Roman numeral 5. I haven't translated this because I'm not entirely sure if I have transcribed everything correctly, but as far as I could figure out, this is a part of an epic poem that talks about the victory of a certain Henricus. And the victory seems to be over the Saracens or Muslims because it talks about the impious signs or impious flags of the moon. It talks about the capture of a city that will no longer be in the hands of infidels or impious tyrants. It talks about this Henricus placing a fortress of wisdom. And it goes on to talk about the progenies of Henricus, probably, running all over the world. And the latter part is clearly, a parody or an imitation of a standard topos in epic poetry, where people talk about the wide world with many geographical terms. Well, it talks about the progenies of Henricus conquering the world and carrying the arms of Christ. I would love to find out what this is, what translation, what the original text is. But unfortunately, I have no idea, and I would love to hear any comments that might come. Now, there are 3 other poems, elegiac poems. One on Longinus, one on Augustine, and one on St. Martin. Now, again, I did internet searches and found that the one on Longinus is by Franciscus Raimundus, a Jesuit. Then the others, I'm less certain. But it is possible that the Japanese Jesuits, let's say, or the Jesuit students are copying pre-existing verses. But this is, another possible indication of Jesuit students studying humanistic Latin, including poetry. And we actually know that at least one alumnus of the Japanese Jesuit seminary wrote an elegiac poem, which was published in the Philippines, Harada, and has a good summary about that. So, what, a lot really remains to be seen. What is this? What is the surviving Latin manuscript of Gomez? Is it an instructor's copy, student's copy, well, presentation copy? It was a presentation copy of some sort at one point of its life, that is clear. I do not believe it was an instructor's copy because of the many corruptions. It is a copy made by students, multiple students, to judge by the differing handwriting in different portions. And well, the second point, I'm probably premature in putting that, but Professor Hiraoka is looking at the possibility that different parts of the text of the manuscript were actually not together from the beginning. And yes, sorry, I'll end right away. Yeah, and there's some, the pagination suggests that the original text was perhaps separate in the beginning. Who were the scribes? Well, one must look at the extant Jesuit vow formulae, I think, because there were several dozen Japanese Jesuits back then, and they all left their handwritten vows in the Jesuit archives in Rome. So, yeah, I would love to again find out, some real Japanese Jesuits connected to this text. Really, there's a lot to be found out here. Thank you.